So, namaste, welcome to this monthly Satsang Q&A. And if you are new to our channel, you are very, very welcome. And each month we take some time to go through any questions that have been sent in. And you can do that on our website, helenhamilton.org, and check out the Satsang page. There is a little form underneath that you can fill in. And if you can send in a question for many reasons, you might want to send a question in to because here, like this, we read them anonymously and answer them. Or you can send a question in to be answered because you can't attend a satsang live due to maybe work commitments or family or time zones being very different. So each month we take a little time to go through what's been sent in, as many as we can. And I will try to answer each one as fully as possible. And you can ask anything on these, as long as it's to do with awakening. Because some people feel, oh, I can't ask that; it's too basic, or I should already know this, or somebody asked that recently, and I can't ask it again. And just encouraging you to whatever is in your heart that you need help with, or if there's a challenge you're going through that you want to share and get some advice on in regards to awakening, then absolutely welcome to send those in. So, as always, we have Anisha to read the questions for me, and really excited to get started. Let's go ahead whenever you're ready, Anish, with the first question. Thank you.
First question, beloved Helen, infinite gratitude. I'm on a difficult path, experiencing much fear and pain daily. Despite working hard, overwhelming sensations sometimes force me back to supportive medication, which brings feelings of weakness, guilt, and frustration, making me feel like I'm cheating and hindering progress. I seek a better understanding for the peace of mind.
So, that's a wonderful way that you finished that. You seek a better understanding, and I love that. So, what we're saying in effect is, how can I look at this differently so that I'm not feeling that same guilt, etc. And many of us, throughout our lifetime and especially along our journey, we can face some quite challenging things, a journey to awakening. Sometimes that will be bodily pain or bodily issues come up as part of the process. And in my own journey, I have had to take some medication along my pathway. And first, I also had this very negative perspective of that I should be able to cope with life, with awakening, um, to cope with what's going on within my body without that kind of help. And it really wasn't true when I looked at it, when I had to really look at this. Am I actually doing something wrong? Or can we reframe it into a different way to look at it? So maybe we can hold this in a bigger context, that it is maybe even a form of self-love emerging, that we can begin to help the body to go through whatever it's going through. And we help the body in every way we can because we love it. It's made of truth. It is consciousness, but it also is telling us that something's off track. And until we can discern what that is, it might have these symptoms for a little while. There's something that we're believing that's not true. And even emotions perhaps that haven't been fully felt. All of this begins to affect the body eventually. And medication, a lot of us have a lot of negative thoughts about that. But medication is also consciousness in form, appearing as that. And if we allow every form of healing and help for the body, First of all, spiritual. We would do our meditation, our practices, to help ease the resistance that we have to those things going on within the body. And whether that's in the mind or the body, it's the same. And we would work on an emotional level as well. We would look at things like contemplation to allow the energy of an emotion to be really met and felt and deeply question the belief behind it. It's a form of non-resistance. And contemplation is a perfect way to be with anything that's arising. And on a mind level, we would also try to help. We might try to choose more loving thoughts about ourselves and about what we're going through. And again, not blaming ourselves when we can't. Then on a physical level, making sure the body has enough water, as much sleep as it needs, if as as much as we can have. We're trying to eat better foods as a general way of living. And taking medication where we need to. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if I hadn't had to. I went through this very deep depression, starting in my mid-20s, really, right into my mid-30s, and eventually culminated in a point where I did need some help from antidepressants because my brain chemistry had just changed too far. And even things like pain pills and things like that can be helpful. Of course, we're not only relying upon those, we are also working on every level spiritually as well, as a holistic healing, not just treating the symptoms, which the medication will do. The symptoms the body is going through as part of a larger illness or dis-ease because there's some kind of vibration in the system that needs to be seen and met and looked at, which is what we do with our spiritual practice. So, can you hold this in a different way? Can we not make something wrong? We might have a preference to be able to live our life without taking medication, a desire, even a strong desire, even if it's there. But let's not make it wrong if we have to help our body that way. Can we see it as no different than um, wrapping a bandage, supportive bandage around a joint that we sprained, or having a hot water bottle just to help us when we're feeling really achy, or having a nice pillow that we feel comfortable when we lay down to sleep at night? Can we hold it in that same kind of light so that we're not um, affected by what we think about the medication? What we think about the medication affects the body far more than the actual medication itself. When I really began to understand that, it became really important that I change how I was holding this. And then we begin to have the results from medication that we would like without any of the complications, or at least less and less of those. So, can you see it as self-love emerging and acknowledging a desire if it's there that to get to a place where you don't need it? But it's okay if you do right now, isn't it? It's totally okay. And remembering that even medication is just another way that the infinite formless self is appearing. And then why do we feel differently about that than we do about the sages or bird song or something that we love, our children, our partner, all of that? Maybe this is some place in our lives that life is asking us to re-include. This is also me. This is also the self. This is also consciousness in disguise. So I hope that that helps. I have been on that journey myself and had to come to this place where there's just an openness and willingness. Ultimately, if it helps, um, there is no doer of actions. You are not choosing to take this medication, the body is doing it. And that's a different place, isn't it, to hold it from? Thanks, Anish, whenever you're ready.
Next question. Do you observe yourself living in being and doing at the same time, or dancing back and forth?
So at first, it was back and forth, definitely. There were periods where brief moments of feeling like I was living as the truth, spontaneous little moments. Um, or maybe after some practice, deep into self-inquiry, it felt like, or contemplation, meditation, moments of being awake to the truth, just effortlessly living that. The vast majority of the waking state was seemingly lost in illusion. And gradually, with the practices that I'm sharing here, because those are the ones that worked for me, that began to turn around more and more. And it was so subtle that I didn't even notice it was happening. More and more, I was just resting as beingness and not having any agenda with anything that was going on in my experience. And actually, somebody had to show that to me. I didn't even notice that that was happening. One day, some big emotion arose inside. I think it was a lot of anger. And it just arose with this intensity that I hadn't experienced before. And my friend at the time, I was with them, and they said to me that, you're not resisting anything now. You're just kind of letting whatever happens happen. And I hadn't noticed. It's strange, isn't it? Because I always thought I would notice, I would know. And I felt inside this anger. There was nothing that could push against it. There was nothing within my system that was trying to get rid of anything or hold on to anything. And I felt through like this, and I tried a few different things, and I couldn't push against anything or grab anything. I didn't know when this started. It's not like I could say, okay, the ability to resist something fell away on the 21st of January this year. I have no idea when that was. I only noticed afterwards, in hindsight, when someone pointed out to me. Because the one that would be looking, making notes, taking score, was disappearing, right? These thoughts, this thought constructed self. And so it's kind of deepened and deepened until eventually there was just this recognition that even if thoughts arose in some contraction, that it was always happening in front of me, and I was always stable here, rooted in the identity as the beingness itself. How do we speed this up? Well, to begin to notice the progress that's already being made. Tiny, tiny moments at first, little nanoseconds of just resting, or 2 or 3 seconds in meditation where there's just beingness and attention hasn't wandered away yet. Just 2 seconds, maybe, that's all we get. But celebrating that rather than criticizing ourselves. Oh, it only lasted 2 seconds. As we celebrate those 2 seconds, we're going to get more of that. And we can begin to soften our attitude to it as well. And most of all, to recognize this changeover is really, really happening already. Predominance of the beingness in the waking state rather than the sense of a separate self is happening. But would we notice? Surprising as it seems, most of us don't notice. We're too busy, I certainly was, berating the fact that anger has come up again, or some emotion, or I believe some thoughts. And I didn't really think to celebrate. Okay, there might have been anger, but nothing resisted it. Or I might have believed thoughts, but there was no judgment of myself afterwards when I came back out of it. Or I came back out of it so much quicker. Or I said the wrong thing to someone and hurt their feelings, and I actually apologized really quickly this time, and there was no guilt. I just said it like, I'm really, I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry. Instead of wrestling with it for ages and making it a way to make myself feel like a bad person. So there'll be all these signs happening for you in your life right now. And it's if we're willing to slow down and take a look at what's actually changing for us. For most people, because we have to work or raise the kids, raise a family, that shift over has to be so gradual that we might not even notice it's happening. So again, I hope that help you to look at it in a different light. Thanks, Anish.
Next question. Hi, Helen. I'm confused by 2 points you've shared. One, when there is no interference, a desire must manifest. And two, the self has no desires. Since I know there is not two, and some desires stem from fear, I'm trying to reconcile these two statements. Any clarification would be greatly appreciated. With love. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. And as always with non-duality, with such a direct teaching, a lot of what is said is seemingly paradoxical. Um, let's see if we can resolve it. So the self, in one way, as you said, it has no desire at all. It doesn't desire anything. There's nothing outside of itself which it could desire or desire to get rid of. It's formless emptiness before form. And there's no one to desire anything there. So there are no desires, of course. But that formless nothingness also likes to appear as these shapes. And when it appears as a shape or a form, from the simplest animal up to the human being, and then even as the universe itself, there's going to be desire. Desire arising in manifestation. In fact, as soon as anything changes in manifestation, the appearance of these forms changes the shape. That is initiated by desire arising. Even a tiny mouse would have a desire to continue to exist and to be safe. And a plant, if we look at a plant, it instinctually turns towards the light to continue to exist. So all of manifestation is simply the movement of desire, the fulfillment of desire. And we arrive at this strange place where we can't really say yes or no to this question: does the real self have any desires? The formlessness. Or we have to say yes and no. And we're resting there. No, no desires in the formlessness, yes in the form. And they're both made of the same. And when we begin to recognize that no desire is actually personal, when we look in our self-inquiry, we see that there is no separate person to whom these desires belong. When we say my desires, my life, my awakening, my body, my thoughts, what we're really pointing to is that formless, empty nothingness that is before form, looking like a human being. And as a human being, it can find itself quite lost in ideas about itself, fascinated with the forms, and forgetting its formlessness. In the formlessness, it's still completely free, but it's moved into the shape of a form, and it's forgotten, at least in thought, its its source and its innate freedom there. And so it begins to feel unsafe or unloved when it focuses on forms. It's trying to get what it needs from the world of form, and it becomes frustrated, disappointed. We all experience not getting what we want. And so much so that we've come to link desire with pain, emotional pain. In fact, we might even think that it's not possible to feel desire without some negative emotion. But those are simply the beliefs that we're holding on to. I don't feel safe, or I don't feel good enough, or I can't get what I want. or even the sense of feeling separate to the thing I want, is enough to impede the manifestation of it and to we feel some negative emotion. So as we realize deeper and deeper, there is no person here, no separate entity living in this body. This is consciousness speaking here, consciousness listening, formless nothingness, emptiness, presence. Then we begin to realize there are no personal desires. All desires are actually a movement of the entire universe moving to change shape and expand into something bigger. And then we begin to change our relationship with desire, really. If desire is the way that manifestation expands, and there's no person that needs to make that desire manifest, we're simply here watching the desire arise and its fulfillment. As we let go of more and more ideas of who we think we are, move deeper into the recognition of who we actually are, what manifests from a desire can be so much bigger and more expansive. And without any fear, guilt, or shame, or those kind of beliefs underneath those emotions, without any sense of limitation, what we see arising from desire is what we commonly call a miracle. And that is the natural state of the biggest thing that can manifest in that moment out of all the range of possibilities. We're believing something to be true about ourselves, like I'm not good enough, for example, I don't deserve happiness, or whatever is going on within us. We're limiting the range of possibilities. We can't get these big, amazing manifestations, only the smaller ones. And sometimes a very narrow range of possibilities. We keep experiencing the same thing, same thing. But even the recognition there's no person holding these desires, that we've been forcing these ideas, these desires through a idea of it being a separate being, and they couldn't really manifest in their fullness. So the formless consciousness appearing as a human being is kind of shaking off these ideas of limitation. I don't want them anymore. What's it like to feel desire arise then without any ideas in the way? It's exhilarating, exciting. And just the feeling of that energy as it moves, energy of desire, there's a knowing that it must fulfill itself, manifest somehow, because there's no person or other thing in the way of its fulfillment. So it's a big subject we've talked about here, and I hope that I've answered your question, but please write back in if you need any more specific. We can zoom in on some section of what we've said here and just give some further detail. Thank you, Anish.
Next question. Dear Helen, if disease can't thrive in God or high frequencies, why did realized masters like Nisargadatta and Ramana Maharishi suffer? Also, why don't self-realized beings dissolve bodies into light with love and gratitude?
Could you just read that one for me again? We just lost you for a moment. Thank you.
Dear Helen, if disease can't thrive in God or high frequencies, why did realized masters like Nisargadatta and Ramana Maharishi suffer physical illnesses? Also, why don't self-realized beings do samadhi, like the rainbow bodies of some Tibetan masters? Thank you for any clarification. With love and gratitude.
So I don't know much about those Tibetan masters, so I can't really comment on that. I would always really just want to speak from my own experience. And with when it comes to awakening and illness and disease, in the body of a sage, it helps to remember that there are a couple of reasons why a sage might still experience illness in the body. The first of those reasons is that it's time for the body to die. What that means is that the life force that has been invested in that body is slowly being removed or quickly being removed, and the sage will have foreknowledge of that when it's time and has begun to withdraw the life force from the body. So as the life force is leaving the body, and very slowly, what happens is, and sometimes the sage will do this very, very slowly to give those around them time to adjust to that fact, that it's time for them to leave their body. And it begins to look like illness. So when the life force is leaving the limbs, for example, bit by bit, there might be some challenge with the limbs then that looks like an ordinary diagnosis of something because there isn't enough life force for healthy functioning left. If you imagine a balloon that's fully inflated, you can bounce it around and throw it up in the air and have fun with it. But as soon as the air starts to leave, it's pretty much not going to work as a balloon, right? You can't bounce it, it's gone soft. And obviously, the analogy has some limits, but hopefully, it's helpful. So, what looks like illness and disease is actually a conscious choice of the sage to leave that body because whatever they came to do with that body is complete or feels complete or as complete as it can be in that particular body mind. The second reason is that just like you and me, the sage is still working through some stuff. So there might be some deep, deep, deep recognition that form and formless are the same thing, and that there never was a person, a separate being, no seeker, just God, just the Godhead appearing as the manifested universe. And that has gone so deep, but still somewhere inside the nervous system, inside the tissues, the muscles, the subtle energy channels, of course, the main central channel where the Kundalini life force will flow up, but also the subtle channels and nadis and things like that. There might be these lower, slower frequencies still stuck in there. And just say it's just like everyone may experience a pocket of that coming to the surface. And until it's seen and recognized, it will look like some kind of illness, some kind of disease. Dis-ease literally means a lack of flow and harmony in the vibration of the body mind. So you can feel generally there's a higher frequency flowing, more life force, and then it meets this slower frequency of shame or fear or guilt. And it's not an emotion that the sage is feeling, it's just kind of, it's past that stage, it's just kind of locked in the tissue. And so, like bubbles in soda or fizzy bubble, fizzy pop, I don't know what you would call it where you live, but they would rise to the surface. They stick to the bottom for a while and then they start to rise and they dissipate when they come to the surface. And it's like that really for all of us. And for a sage, it might happen quite quickly and intensely that something comes up and looks like there's something wrong with the body. But really, it's just some energy dislodging itself. And the third and final reason why the sage may experience some kind of illness or disease is that they would, on some level, choose to take it from someone else. So the sage's body has, and energetic and nervous system has opened so much that they can process and release, just like we were saying, process we were talking about, from their well, it would take the student a lot longer to process. The sage can do it in seconds, minutes, hours, what would take months, years in the student. So there might be a choice there to help the student on that level, which might make the difference between them being able to recognize who they really are in this lifetime, as opposed to having to wait for the next body and mind. So again, I can't answer the rest of that question because I just don't know. It's not my experience. I haven't really ever followed that path. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's beautiful, but it's just not something I could speak about from my own experience. So, yeah, I hope that helps to answer your question. Thank you, Anish.
Next question. After awakening, do the personality, that is the character, still remain the same?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends what we mean by personality and character. So there is, from my experience, there's something called personality, we could say, but it isn't a person. It's more like a software program that the body mind uses. Um, and it helps the body mind navigate its way through the world. And maybe that's what you mean by personality and character. But when the sense of the firm conviction that I'm separate to you, that you're a different being to me, we're two different beings, when that's gone, then there is kind of because along with that belief in separation going, will also go these ideas that depend upon the sense of a separate self, the sense that I'm not good enough, that I'm limited, I'm unlovable, unworthy, all of those things hang on like branches on the tree of separation. And when the separation's gone, so is all of that. No person, no karmic patterns, right? Um, so when all of that is gone or is deeply disappearing, we could say, then the software program can run without viruses, right? Without viruses in the system. If you think of it like a computer virus of belief, that kind of just gets in there and messes things up. Things function, but not so well. So the awakened being, as that matures in the system, it might actually paradoxically feel like you are more yourself rather than less yourself. I am the formless consciousness, and I'm also appearing as Helen. And maybe I can finally get in touch with what it is to be Helen in the manifestation. What is it I really like? What don't I like? What do I prefer? How do I like to move through the day? How do I speak to other beings? How do I, on and on? What are my strengths and what are things I could shore up a little bit, my weaknesses? And the personality and the character might get smoothed out, the rough edges taken off of it, um, where we might have some skill or some trait that we've brought into this lifetime we haven't been able to fully utilize because this belief's getting in the way of that. So, for example, I was always, when I thought I was a separate being, I was always getting myself in trouble because I would be too direct with people. You know, if someone asked me, do you like my new hairstyle? And no, not really. I don't like it. And of course, nobody wants to hear that. And it took me a while to realize they didn't actually want to have a no, they wanted a yes. But then when the sense of separation began to leave and I began to realize that I actually wanted to teach, that that was what this body mind was supposed to do. The rough edges of that got smoothed away. And I found that that directness is, well, I'm using it now, right? In this, here, in this. And maybe I can say, yeah, your new hairdo, yeah, I like it. It's good, you know. So it still does exist, but it's this character, this personality is a superficial thing, not in a bad way. It's just not our essence. It's just something we're functioning with, expressing ourselves through. And we actually begin to fall in love with it rather than constantly trying to change it. Probably notice that starting to happen, right? Yourself, maybe just a little bit. So hope that that helps you to begin to see it more as a functionality, a software program rather than a real entity. And then it begins to be infused by the love of who we really are. And generally becomes more amiable and friendly. Not always, but most times. So thank you, Anish.
Next question. Dear Helen, thank you for teaching about light and awakening. How can one reconcile the spiritual path with social activism for justice, for peace, as exemplified by figures like Jesus, Gandhi, and Simone Weil? I appreciate your gentleness, strength, dedication, and love.
Thank you for your kind words. I don't actually know who Simone Weil is, so I would have to look that up. I will take a Google afterwards. And, as our awakening deepens and we begin to recognize who we are, we can, excuse me, we can find that we have a inner purpose, we could say, which is to wake up to what is real and what is true. And as that's deepening, we'll also find that that wants to move in an outward way in terms of what the body mind does and what it feels what we're interested in, what feels important to us. And we probably have everyone listening to this, watching this, has something in their heart that feels really important. Maybe we are um, concerned about the destruction of the ecosystem, or for the welfare of animals, or for homeless people, or whatever it is in our hearts, and we can find ourselves moved from the place of what's real to do something to make a difference in those areas. This is my movement, right? This is my trying to make a difference from here. And we can find that we can act towards these causes that touch our heart, but without trying to make anything wrong, without trying to make anything a mission, we could say. We just feel that we want to do what we can, and that our consciousness is emptying itself out of all the reasons why our actions wouldn't be effective. So, plenty of people have tried to really make a difference in the world towards these causes, but usually we're doing so from a sense of separation and from duality, polarity. I can care for animals because I love to see them well and healthy, or I can do it and at the same time pushing against those who treat them cruelly or do things that we would not condone. So we might have a preference and a desire from the awakened place, what we would like to see, and we do what we can towards that. But without getting caught in the sense of separation, it has to make something right and something else wrong, or someone else wrong. We cannot see peace in the world and lack of conflict if we're conflicted inside ourselves as well. So this is what I would like. I wouldn't want to see any more of this, but I'm not making it wrong. Let me engage here. What's going on with these people that are doing things I don't like is that they're lost in their thoughts completely. They think what they think is reality. And as that understanding deepens inside, there is an ability to actually make a difference, and our actions become quite effective because there's no division within us, at least not in that area. And you might find yourself more active than you were when you thought you were a separate being, able to do a lot more physically because the body isn't being taxed by these constant thoughts in separation and division. So, what is it that feels important to you? And what is it like to look at that from a sense of wholeness and unity? without any sense of limitation. What can be achieved from there? Thank you, Anish. I think this will be the last question for now.
Last question for today.
Hmm.
Helen, thank you for sharing your vulnerable awakening journey. Your insights have guided me through difficult times. Your experience as a woman and mother is deeply encouraging. I awoke to my true nature years ago, the void looking through my eyes. Yet living from this place feels incomplete. After much letting go, my meditations are still and silent. I am happier and life is peaceful, but separation remains. I feel like a water bubble not fully merged with the vast ocean of being, holding back due to a lack of trust. Is there a practice to address the question? Is the ocean a safe one? In deep gratitude.
Very beautifully spoken. Thank you so much. I'm glad that my experience is as helpful when to share my experience along the way. Um, and it's the same it was the same for myself, what you described here, and for many, many beings. There's this myth that awakening happens and everything's fine after that. But after we've begun to see who we are, it can kind of instigate this period of intense um, discerning and having to look at what comes to the surface. And one of those things that came to the surface for me is I can't trust life. Even after seeing I am life, that I can't be separate to life or the self. Still, there was this mistrust somewhere deep in the system, fear. Also, other beliefs that I'm not good enough, not safe, that I can't get what I want, many, many more of them. So, what I would suggest is to stay with this question, this beautiful question. And you can ask it in a very open way. We do some types of self-inquiry here in this teaching. The first one of those is that we simply ask the question and we welcome all answers. And we call it an inclusive method because we're including all of these answers. So you ask that question and you're open to receive all, even sounds going on in the outside your house, inside your house, thoughts arising, emotions arising, any contractions in the body, sensations. If the cat walks through the room as you ask the question, that's another answer. Everything is an answer. And what it does is it begins to open the system up so that you can't identify with certain things. And just because we're seeing who we really are doesn't mean somehow magically the nervous system and the mind begin to just, oh, okay, everything's all right then. So we still have to do that work ourselves by looking at what's true. So I suggest using this inclusive kind of method, 5 or 10 minutes a day, asking this beautiful question and seeing what arises. And actually, as we do this inquiry, we begin to realize in that moment we are living as the ocean that accepts all of the waves and all of the droplets, and all the rivers feed into the ocean, and the ocean never says, stop, you can't come in. It's just welcome, welcome, welcome. Everything's welcome here. Rain falling, all of it, all forms of water in this analogy. And it's kind of what we're doing or being when we do this kind of self-inquiry. So that would be the thing I suggest. But also just to notice that the challenge or the question, again, it comes from the perspective of the drop of water and not from the ocean. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. And we can feel there's a subtle sense of separation there, feeling like I'm the one that's got to merge into the ocean, the real self, the formlessness. But we could even question, is that true? What I began to realize is anything that arose after a deep, deep seeing of who I am is the old way of thinking in which I feel separate to that self. So if I am the ocean, if I begin to see I am the ocean, can there be any mistrust? And of course, intellectually, right now, we'll say, of course not. If I am it, of course. But just asking this in this very open way each day for 30 days so that we begin to change the way we think, it will decondition these beliefs that have been inside and allow any pockets of fear or mistrust to surface from our system and just begin to gently leave. Some of those will be answers to our self-inquiry, right? And I trust this vast ocean of the self. That one of the answers might be fear or bliss or peace or thoughts about, well, yes, and I know I can trust. Thoughts saying, no, I can't. I can't trust. It's not safe. And so just noticing these pockets of the old identity that pop up. And self-inquiry is a great way to just, in our openness to the question, our system, our energetic system is open and these things can just begin to leave. Everything that we're struggling with is just something that needs to be met and just discerned. Is that really true now? Feels true from the sense of separation. If I am the ocean and the drop and the rivers and the rain, it puts a whole different kind of feeling on that, right? Notice we tend to identify as the ocean or the drop or the rain or the rivers. What if we kind of open to this very inclusive, I can show up in all of these ways. I'm appearing as this thought in identification. I, the formless self, is appearing as this thought about mistrust. And I'm pouring myself into this shape of this thought. So I hope it helps to just know that you are deeply uh, into the process, so to speak. And that every sage has had to do this same tidying up of the mess that the separate sense of self left behind. A sense of a self that was never there, but it thought it was, and it thought in certain ways, or the way that we think is not automatically changed by a deep seeing, which was very surprising to me. I had bought the myth that says I'll have this one big seeing, and then my mind will just suddenly stop thinking. And for most of us, it isn't. It isn't that way, and that's perhaps a good thing because if we have to raise the kids, get them to school on time, get them out of bed on time, and get to work on time, a big explosive awakening isn't really in our best interest. For most of us, it's so gradual, so we can assimilate bit by bit each day. And you'll notice these little bumps in the road that come up, right? These little pockets of identification. But just knowing that they're normal and that you're right on track. Hopefully that helps. Thank you so much, Anish, for reading the questions for me so beautifully. And thank you for joining me for this latest volume 17 of this Satsang Q&A. And just a reminder that if you do want to send a question in, you can go to helenhamilton.org and check out the Satsang page. Or in the description on YouTube underneath this video, there'll be a link to send in your question, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Thank you so much, and I hope you have enjoyed this time together. I certainly have enjoyed being here with you, and sending you lots of love and the deepest blessings. Namaste.